Okay, so now we start.
Now we start. Dang, it's hot.
Yeah, the sun comes right out on you.
After all that work. Um,
Yep, the sun is coming I think it's coming like this. I think I was watching it.
yeah.
It's gonna come right over our heads probably in a bit, but it is what it is.
Yeah. So I'm like thinking about this and like how these particular angles and there's like a level of our image that when people see, and depending on where they are that day, that mood and like their perception and all that, the message that we speak, it can affect people differently. I try not to think like too much about this type of stuff, especially because I can drive myself nuts, But these things do, you know, they're
They
always
matter to an extent.
yeah,
Uh-huh.
because they're always playing like it's like a background music in my head,
Mhm.
because
They could be distracting.
I'm video. I have to film. I have to shoot. I have to edit. So
Mm.
these are things that I'm considering and I think about all the time.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, anyhow, there are some topics that I wanted to talk to you about, right?
Yeah. Ooh, so bright.
I know it is right.
It's like I can't imagine the sun is like
I know.
at you.
So I'm trying not to like stare up, look up.
Mm.
It's fine.
Yeah, so what's been on your mind? I know that you had a list of things, but at the same time, sometimes that list
Yeah.
doesn't always match where
Yeah.
you're at in your
Yeah.
life right now, you
yeah.
know?
Yeah. So, and that's always the dilemma.
Mm-hmm.
I know that you're a content creator, I'm a content creator, that, and we always have these ideas that come and go in our heads. Sometimes these ideas are good right in that moment, but then next day comes or a week goes by, and then you might reflect back and be like, this is stupid. I don't even know why or how I thought of this idea.
Yeah. I mean, there's a time for it,
Yeah.
for those ideas to come out.
Yeah.
But I do think it's good to.
And then there's this aspect, we talked about this a little while ago, about each and every one of us have different layers of character and persona and different kinds of emotions, right, of who we are as human beings, and some days we like deeper things, discussing about deep ideas and philosophical, the manhood, these type of topics, right? Some days we want to just be light, and some days we want to be in that little bit of mischievous, peculiar type of mindset. And I don't know, it varies so much. So people change all the time, but I just gotta sometimes block out these noises in my head. I try to think too much sometimes about all these, how people will perceive my message,
Mm-hmm.
and I hope I'm delivering it the right way so that they can actually understand what I'm understanding.
Now, is that one of the topics? Because if that's a topic that you had in mind, then
I do want to talk to you about this actually, but I'm opening up the doc here.
okay.
So there's a lot of really, really, really good topics here, Nothing. The problem is we have limited time.
Don't worry about the time, because if you think about time, then you're not thinking about what is that you're doing. Just stay stay in the moment, stay present,
Yeah.
because it's not how many things that you talk about, right?
Yeah.
You're not trying to check out every single box.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a simple question.
Yeah.
Are you okay?
What do you mean?
Just, if you were to answer that question simply, like, are you okay? If someone were to someone were to come up to you and someone would say like, hey, are you okay? Would you be like, sure, yeah? Versus a pastor coming up to you versus a friend coming up to you, would your
Yeah.
answer be the same throughout?
It's a very personal and deep question because it's coming from you. Someone that, out of all my friends, I think you know me the most, I'd say. You and a few of my other friends, you know. Because I allow you guys to see my different sides to me. I don't always portray every character, every layers of persona that I have to everybody, you know. None of us do. So when you ask me that question, it's difficult to answer.
Like, would you say yes or would you say no? If it was a
It's
stranger,
both.
what would you say?
It's both. It's
So,
both.
hmm. So,
Yes, in a way that I'm content with who I am, like where I am with my life.
so
You
who would
know,
you say,
and
like, so-so? Who would you say to so-so? Would you say to a stranger like so-so? Or would you say to like your close friends like so-so? Or like no? Or yes?
I think depending on the person. To be honest with you, I read people relatively quickly. So if I know this person, they're, you know, just the just their depth and their character is somewhat not at the level where I appreciate, you know, then I would probably say so-so, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But if they're the kind of character, they have many layers to them and they have many variations of their wisdom and knowledge, then I would be honest with you and tell you how I feel. Those are the kind of people that I meet throughout life that I feel comfortable
Mm-hmm.
telling them just about anything, you
So
know.
would you say that you are okay? Or would you say like
Yeah, I mean,
not so
so
much?
the reason why I say both is because in one way I say yes because I am comfortable and I'm confident in who I am. I know my identity, I know my purpose, right? I know why I exist in this world.
Mm-hmm.
So this is, not everyone can say this, you know? And
Yeah.
because we live in a society and a world where this is like, this is the first battle that people have to first overcome, is finding their self-identity. And then you find your purpose, and then you find meaning and et cetera, afterwards. But I've already found these things, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Granted, I haven't found some of the other things in life, right? Wife is a really big one. And like giving my parents a comfortable lifestyle is another that I don't have or I haven't done yet. And having
But that's not
kids, and
required. That's not even biblical, is it?
I know, but
But I'm saying like through
traditionally, you know,
yeah.
culturally, you know this, like guys always want to take care of their parents, and
In the cult that you're in, which is the Korean cult. I'm just saying Korean culture. In the Korean
I don't
culture
like the way
is
how that's being phrased, but
yeah, I'm saying like culture is like a group of people who have a certain belief system,
yeah,
you know?
yeah. But I mean, you know those, you know my story, so how
Mm-hmm.
can a son like me not want to take care of his parents? This doesn't make any sense. It's like I would never abandon them, you know.
Mm.
I think our perception on, unfortunately, like our maybe the things that we see eye to eye with me and my parents and you and your parents is a little bit differently, you know.
Of course, yeah.
And yeah, I that, but that really matters to me because, you know, sure I could be selfish and do all the things I want, take care of myself and make all the money in the world and climb the mountain, the highest points. But if I forget the people that, you know, supported me my whole entire life, of my childhood to my young adulthood, it just doesn't make any sense. I can't, I have a hard time forgiving people like that. People who become somebody in this world. Now they're at some kind of a statue figure or whatever, and they forget the people who helped them to get there, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I have a hard time forgiving people like that. I don't think I don't think I could ever do that. Yeah. So I don't see myself ever abandoning my parents in any some way. And even if they were to be separated or any kind, and God, I hope, I pray that that doesn't ever happen, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, it's an obligation for me. It's like a duty, you know?
Mm-hmm.
They sacrificed their 30 plus years of their life, you know? Granted, they didn't have to get married either, right? For matter, God, I mean, none of our parents in this world had to be married and to produce us to let us come into this world, you know, but they did. And that the point is that every parent have sacrificed their youth or their young adulthood, you know, in their 20s and 30s and 40s, whatever, which is like arguably the most primal, most prime age for any human beings. They sacrificed those precious years for their children, you know, and then like, I don't know, it's just some of this stuff about life just doesn't make sense sometimes when you think about it like that. But it's all part of God's creation, the nature and natural progression, I should say. I don't know.
I think filial piety, which is basically like an endearing reverence
Yeah,
towards your parents, is something that you carry deeply.
I do.
You know, which is, I think it's a healthy, a healthy thing to have, um, in respect to your parents and such. I wonder how much of that you need to not abandon or like leave or anything like that, but how much you need to separate of that in order to find your wife. Because if you're that close to your parents and that tight knit, like how can you go off and find your wife? You know, because God says he who finds a wife finds favor in the Lord, right? Or something along the lines of that. So it's not a woman who finds a husband. You know, God said it's the man who finds a wife, not just the man who finds a woman. So how much of that duty is in us? Because the obligation that I see is husband to wife. So if the wife is not okay, that was the husband's duty to fulfill that part of it, you know? And I suppose sometimes if that's not okay, it gets imposed on the child or like on the son or something like that. So it's like that reverence at the same time is sometimes the duty of the husband or the father of that family. You know what I'm saying? Because I know that there's a lot of families in general that struggle with like divorce because of money or some form of that. It's one of the biggest relationship breakers, you know, finances and such.
So can
So,
I tell you something like how I feel about this whole thing, right? So it's biblical that a man leaves his parent to find his wife and to start his own family. Let's just sit there for a second because that statement in itself is incredibly profound. Granted, the sons, when I say sons, I'm talking about even daughters, right? The kids, they live with their parents their whole life. They've seen what this incredible life is supposed to be, you know, getting nurtured by a father and a mother, both figures. You need both, you know? And this child come to a grown-up stage too, and the child needs to now step out from their parents' wings to find his own missing half, you know. And but there's sense of like still attachment there with your parents because biologically speaking too, you know, like because I inherit their physicality, their personalities even, and a lot of their gifts and talents, right, skills, and not to mention when you get to my age, you go through many different journeys, right? One of the major ones called inner journey, where you discover about who you are in this life, and in the midst of that, I wonder why I am the way I am, you know, why I have variety of interests and talents and things of this world, right? It only made sense when I got to know my parents more, you know. When I got to know my mom, why she's such a giver, it made sense why I'm that way too. And the same thing with dad, with his wisdom, and yeah, just some of the deep, profound like characters that he have. Like, why do I long for these things, and why do I have it? It's because he has it, you know. And so, I'm learning so much of these type of things. And so, in a way, growing up, I've had incredible amount of expectation towards my future wife. I conceptualized this woman that I've never met, but to be somewhat of a figure that could be my equal in many areas, right? But also someone who has the qualities of my parents, you know, and but I realize how difficult it is to find that. Um, it's not impossible. I'm not saying that either, you know, but in this world, in this current modern world, it's more difficult, I suppose, you know. And so let me finish up with this. Hold on. Like filial piety, that's such a reverent word in Eastern culture. I think a lot of Western culture people don't quite understand the depth of that meaning, because you it's the thing that you experience as a child your whole life, who your parents are as a parent to a child, but parent being like the superheroes and these role models for what society is supposed to be, right? And so you grow up, now it's your turn to get married, now it's your turn to contribute to society, so now you have to find a partner, and and you're hoping that you could find somebody like your parents, you know, someone obviously who believes in God, who fears the Lord, and who understands this world the way how I understand the world. You know, this is non-negotiable for me. You know, at the same time, there are other human requirements. I mean, not requirements, but like human things, like such as like, you know, looks that I'm looking for, or personality, or physical skills, or mental abilities, and things like that I'm looking for, you know. And anyway, I don't want to keep talking about that because I'm just, again, idealizing someone who's impossible to find, right? Because nobody's perfect in this world. But
Well, what I have to say about that is it sounds like you're going through a struggle and that what you're looking for is dang near impossible. But when God brings you something, it's never impossible. When God blesses you, when he brings you a miracle, you can say all you want before. It's like there's not a chance. There's a million and one,
Yeah,
a
yeah.
billion, a billion to one chance. Like you can say all these things, but when it actually happens, when it's brought to you, those proportions and ratios, it it's an illusion,
Yeah.
you know. Um,
Yeah, I realize that too. So,
yeah.
so,
I
gosh,
believe,
there's,
honestly, I do believe that you're gonna find and discover what you're looking for in what season of your life, you know, who knows when, but I think it's one of those things where it's like, God, like, this is what I'm looking for. I want this and this and this. Like, show me that thing. A lot of times, the thing that we want, the thing that we need, is not what we really need,
yeah,
you know?
yeah, I agree.
And sometimes what we need is someone who doesn't share all of those things that you're looking for and who is severely flawed so that you can step in and the leadership that you haven't developed yet or the compassion that you might be lacking in some areas, it gets grown in you. You know what I mean? So that lack over here nurtures your maturity, and it's not what you want, but it's what's needed to be built inside of you, you know? A lot of times we're looking for someone, or at least culture tells us, trying to find someone compatible or someone to complete something or other.
Yeah.
But sometimes like it's two incomplete pieces that come together to build that
When it comes
thing
to
that grows
when
with
it
each
comes
other.
to love, like that whole world of love, it's the most mysterious aspect about this creation. It really is.
It's a reflection of God, or it's God's vehicle.
Can
I
I
don't
ask
think
you?
we're not supposed to understand love. We're supposed to accept it. And once we accept it, we can also give it.
Can I ask you something?
Yeah.
I've once asked you if you believe in a soulmate,
Mhm.
and that was some years ago. What
Yeah.
do you think about that now?
Okay. So, let me see. Let me see what type of words I should use for this here.
Yeah.
Um,
Because love is a choice. You can love anybody and you can potentially marry anyone in this world. Right? That's a fair statement, I'd say.
I think that
Some love are like love at first sight, but some are developed love. Some are broken love that gets remended. There's so many variations of this love story
mhm.
that's out there. And it's the I suppose one of the gosh, they're gonna come and cut that now. Seriously, out of all this.
Just keep it going. What were you saying?
It's just sorry, it's just breaking my concentration, stuff like that. People cutting like, why would you need to cut that branch? And why do you need to come over here out of all these trees around this park? It's ridiculous. Anyway, so now it's just freaking ruining my flow. That whole state. Hold on, let me get a drink and then recollect my thought.
Well, hold on. How about I answer what you asked me first?
Okay.
You asked me, do I believe in soulmates?
So let's go back to that so the continuity's sake. So, alrighty.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't believe in soulmates. I don't believe it one bit.
Okay.
Because the highest place that we can be is not in our soul, it's our spirit. So I believe that God, he ordained two people to come together, and it's the it's the spirits that connect. It's the spirits that connect because what resides in heaven is not our souls, it's our spirit. So when we find someone, you connect on a spiritual level, not on a soul to soul type of level.
Let me ask you another question then, following
Yeah.
up. I told you that story back in January of 2022, that incident where my parents and I entered through that portal and then they were no longer married, right? Um, and I witnessed that whole process, you know, because I'm their child. I wanted to be married my entire life, and I saw the final moment of our life here on earth in that dream. And when they entered through that portal into that eternal realm, they were no longer married. And I don't know, I had an incredible amount of emotions watching that, you know. And in the end, we're not going to be married in heaven. Jesus says that, you know, in the Bible. So one of the great struggle any human beings go through in life is trying to find love, right? One of the very big thing that, you know, thing that we all have to wrestle and conquer, essentially. So just finding that alone in this life is incredibly difficult. And like we were talking about it in the car on the way here, about how if you observe all the living organisms in this world, from even plants to animals and sea creatures, the whole process of like sperm competing against 300 other million to meet with that one egg, and that egg has to accept, and then it comes together and then gives birth to life, you know, and that little speck of little cellular thing grows up in this world, gains intellect, gains ability to be sentient, and develops consciousness, develops emotions, and all kinds of abilities. And then that being, if one day gets old, and naturally it has this desire that it too wants to bring life to this earth, you know, and but at the end, when we go to heaven, we're not going to be married anymore. And part of me, I think about that, and it's a great mystery because, you know, of course marriage is a gift. It really is, you know. It's a very temporal gift. It's almost unfair because he gives up something to us that is so precious and so valuable, yet for a speck of time, right? And because there's a greater things that we'll do in heaven, you know, greater things that we just cannot comprehend and fathom right now while we're on this physical body, right? So, but my thing is this, like, being married, having your own family, and starting a brand new chapter or season in your life, you know. Not everyone goes through this, but most people want to go through it. But I don't know. It's one of those. So suppose like we walk through this pathway, the trail here, and if the road splits into two major roads, and both look really good, right? One is a single life for the rest of your life. One is married life, and you have so many amazing blessings and this amazing thing that come together when the two bodies unite, and right? But both is good, I suppose. You know, have you ever thought something like this before? Had your family, right? I know you have 8 kids, and you probably don't really think this way. I mean, my dad has a hard time too, even because he already had a kid. For guys who already chose that married life and already have kids in this world, it's like literally saying push a rewind back like 20 plus years ago and then like try to conceptualize what your future life will look like and then re-envision what your life could be. I mean, it's like, it's a different thing, you know?
Well,
But since I'm single, I'm asking you this, you know, as a single guy, right? Because I think about all kinds of different scenarios for me, you know? I really have. I thought about living by myself. I thought about adopting just as a single guy. And I thought about, you know, even marrying a girl who has a kid, even though that might be very difficult, you know?
Yeah.
So I visualize all kinds of scenarios.
yeah. So you asked a lot of things, or you spoke about a lot of things. Let me touch on a couple of them.
Okay.
You talked about the dream that you had with about your parents,
Yeah.
and you saw that as very like sorrowful. You had a lot of sorrow and emotions when you pictured that, right?
Right.
Where they be basically kind of diverted into strangers,
Right.
and you kind of see that in heaven.
Yeah.
See, like, I don't see that as a sad thing. I see that as a happy thing, because what we're doing here on earth is we live with our parents, we learn things, and then we break off from them. And that whole process of like breaking off to find something new,
Yeah.
that process is a little bit melancholy, because now that person is no longer, let's say, in that house, and now they're attached now to their wife, right? So that same feeling that you feel when people go off into heaven and now they're, I wouldn't say strangers, but let's say they're no longer married. That's not a sad thing, you know? Like, just imagine your parents seeing you get married. There could be some melancholy to it, because it's kind of like, oh, okay, like, he's growing up, you know, next stage of life. And I think it's the same thing with our life here. If you become married and you recognize like okay, well, it's time to go to heaven now. That was just a taste. That's just the sample of what it is to be married to God. We're only here for just a short amount of time to get a taste of what it is, what marriage is like, to be accepted, to be loved. So when we go to heaven, we get the fullness of that. So I don't think it's a sad thing. I don't even think it's like a melancholy thing. I think it's just a taste, a sample, and to understand like the compass of like how God works. And then once we actually get to a realm that he exists, we receive the fullness of being married to Christ. You know, Jesus looks at the church and he's married to the church. And if you think about all the heartaches and such because of how sin is in this world and just how it corrupts people and stuff.
Can I ask another question?
Yeah.
Everything you said is completely true and completely right. And we're all children of God at the end of the day, you know? And but, you know, in order for, I suppose, more people to enter into kingdom of God, kingdom of heaven, because when you enter into kingdom of heaven, it means that a living being can witness and taste what it's like to exist forever. That's part of what heaven is, you know? And so God wants us to understand that forever in a space where time isn't a thing, like the way how it is here on earth, you know? And I suppose God's desire is so that many of his children or whoever else will come into this future, you know, I'm talking about through birth, you know, many people to grow up to the state where that person comes to the age of accountability, where they can understand the concept of good and evil, and they can choose, you know, which way they want to go. But ultimately, through life, you know, in order for that being to gain knowledge and to understand and fully mature, right? Fully mature to just like, when I say that, and I mean like maturity, and when I say full maturity, I'm talking about maturity in all element and aspects of life. What it's like being an adult, having a certain level of perspective, understanding who you are, to all that, you know. But ultimately, it's like, you know, fully mature is like mature to the spiritual level, where we know that this life is just like a little playground, like you were saying. It's just a test ground before the transition into the eternal realm. And so we learn many aspects what is to be human in this realm, right? In this earthly realm. Once we get married, we understand about what marriage is like through that realm, and, you know, giving birth to a next generation is like your future you type of thing, you know. And then you learn more about yourself through that too, right? Through your kids and stuff. And then at the same time, you know, you spend time with your parents, and then you see them being grandparents, just like the way how you were once little and you were loved by your grandparents. So you see these like full circle moment, like there are many full circle moment type of thing in life, and you experience all these different things. You experience all kinds of other aspects too, chasing your own ambition, what it's like to be a man, what it's like to settle, right? What it's like to be honest, what it's like to be emotional and learning to express that type of thing, you know, just, and any whatever form of challenges too, you know. Rather, it's like reconciliating with like broken relationships or friends or families.
Yeah.
That's a whole other thing about the world, you know. I think everyone should experience, right? So you experience all these monumental things in life, and then now you're at the end, you're a fully matured human being. And I think that's like what God is looking for, you know, and beings that understand what is the heart of the Creator, why He created life, why God created galaxies and planets and this little ball that we're living in, so-called Earth. And because God, my dad says this all the time, God desires and He rejoices when people want to know who He is. You know,
Yeah, I agree with that.
A created being lives life, tries out every little element of life and dimensions and aspects or whatever you call, goes into every subworlds and subworlds of that, and tries literally everything about life to figure out why that being exists and what is their purpose of life, and etc.
Yeah.
You know, so God really rejoices at the fact when that being finally comes to that mature stage and it wants to know the Creator, you know, from that standpoint. Not like in a way like, I want to get to know you so you can give me things that I want. That's just foolish and the lowest, you know, childish ways, right? But I'm talking about as an adult, like a person like that's gone through marriage and have kids, and perhaps even like towards the end of their life, whatever, you know.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of reflection points there, especially with what you're saying about God and us as humans wanting to know the Creator. I think that comes back to, you know, when we mature into adulthood and eventually, let's say, even marriage, being able to come back to our parents and just have more questions when you're at that space, when you're at that state,
Yeah.
you know. Do your best to just ignore the things around you, because some of that stuff you can't even hear on the mic,
Yeah.
And also,
Yeah, AI, yeah.
no, but also like when you look around and stuff,
Yeah.
that's footage that you can't even use. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, true. Okay.
So just
yeah, you're right. Okay.
be settled.
Okay.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, marriage and all that stuff, it definitely is profound. And at the same time, it's so simple when we see like how it correlates with how God just wants things to be.
Yeah.
Sometimes we have a habit of complicating things. You know what I'm saying? And just
Well, I mean, it is because people like us, we're complicated beings, you know.
are we?
Yeah, I understand. I understand what you mean by simple,
Yeah.
because everything in life is the way how you perceive things, and it's about perspective, right? If there's a person who really taught me that, it's you, you know. Ever since I met you, you really told me what it's like to have multiple perspectives in life, you know, and that's like it's a blessing and a curse, though, you know. And we have talked about that, having too much perspective is bad. And sometimes now I've given that knowledge, so now I can't unsee that,
Yeah.
not
But also,
having simple mind, it's not, I don't know.
but also, I recognize that sometimes perspective is just an illusion,
Yeah,
because having a perspective just means that you found another way to look at the thing that just is. What is it that it is just the way it is? We don't always have to create a narrative to try to what are we doing? You know what I mean?
yeah.
What are we doing with it by creating a perspective that just dissuades you from even going in that direction?
I think this is why a lot of people get confused about reality. That's what it is. Having too many perspectives and like what if scenarios to their imaginations taking over their mind, and they're creating scenarios that actually isn't the real grounding reality, right?
I think that
And
people
so,
are just a little bit fearful too, because sometimes when you try to create a narrative or perspective on something, is to justify something that you can't really control. Like let's say someone just came up to you and punched you. Like you're trying to reason like, well, maybe like he just was in a bad mood or something, or maybe just, you know what I mean? Like, but the fact is, it happened. How are you going to handle it?
yeah,
Like the perspective in a lot of ways doesn't matter. It's more so like, how are you going to continue to exist? Or how much of a diversion is that going to be before you get back in line to how you should be moving? You know what I mean?
yeah,
So there's some conversations that shouldn't be had. There's some perspectives that shouldn't be touched on. There's some opinions that don't matter. There's some religions and belief systems that you don't really need to study.
hold on a second. Hey, sorry, we're trying to record here. I'm sorry, we're trying to record. Godly, this guy.
Now, how can you say what you said
I'm sorry.
in a way that
I know.
is not offended?
I know. It's.
You know what I mean?
But like, I just want like, can you not see the cameras and we're trying to record and like, he's
We're
just
not the most
shouting.
important people right
I
now.
know,
You know what I
but
mean?
still, it's just like a little bit, just a sense, show a little bit of courtesy here. It's just because this is not everyday thing. I don't get to come out and like spend time with you and like in person.
They don't know that, Paul.
I know.
They don't know. They're just doing their job, trying to feed their family, They have their world. We have ours. This might be their third job they're going into. And they see this guy shooing him off. Now he has a machete in his hand. What's he about to do with that? I'm just saying, how can you exude the best of God in any situation? In every encounter, because that might be the last encounter they have with someone who believes in Christ. You know what I mean? Or an Asian guy.
What do you want me to say to that? I mean,
I'm not asking you to say anything. I'm just saying, just look in yourself. That's all. Look in yourself.
okay, well, sorry. There's some questions that I do want to ask you. Should we get a little personal now?
Yeah, as much as you want.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Ooh, sun is on our heads. You're talking about personal.
Yeah.
How personal are you willing to get? That's the question. Are you willing to answer the question that you'll be asking me?
In my own recording?
All right, go ahead. I'm open.
I will try.
Hey, go ahead.
When was the last time you cried, and why?
The last time I cried, like how? In what way? How hard?
I don't know, for somebody that you know that your relationship will never be the same again, or you might never see that person again.
Oh, okay, so like a cry for loss.
Cry for a loss.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Or have you ever had that experience?
I think so. I'm just trying to remember a time, because when you said the last time I cried, the last time I cried was probably. Now you're talking about loss.
It doesn't have to be lost, but let's just say anything.
Okay. Well, the last time I cried was when I was upstairs in the house, and I was listening to some like worship songs and stuff like that with Elena, and then I think Elena just stepped out, and I was also about to walk out, and then as I was about to walk out, kind of like when you're watching YouTube or when you're watching something, like it just loops to the next video type of thing. And I was just gathering my things about to leave, and something about that song just like captured me at that moment, and it just felt like someone just took my shirt and just like yanked me to the ground. And it just humbled me so much. Something about the song, I don't know if the words wasn't even in English. It was in like a different language that I don't even know.
Yeah.
And I just felt like humbled, like a cloud of, what do you call it, like a angelic cloud or something just like laid on me. And I just started like sobbing and crying, and was like weeping, and it was no other reason except for like just being in like shock and awe or something like that.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was for like, I don't know, maybe like 2 or 3 minutes. And so like that happened, and I crawled over into the closet, because I used to use that closet for just kind of like a prayer closet.
Yeah.
And I was just like praying, I was praising, and just like weeping, and it was pretty intense. And I couldn't describe why, except because God's power just
Yeah.
leaned on me, you know.
Yeah.
And I just collapsed from that. So that was the last time. It wasn't, honestly, it wasn't even out of happiness. Um, I think part of it was out of like gratefulness and
Yeah.
just being in awe.
Yeah.
It wasn't out of like sadness or anything like that. I think it was really just being humbled. You know what I mean? And I think humbleness in that way, being humbled is not necessarily a good feeling. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like being humbled, a lot of times it reveals shame. It reveals lack. It reveals you're not as good as you think you are. But at the same time, it's a healthy lesson to have. It's a healthy thing to, fill yourself with.
Yeah.
And I think it was just one of those moments where I just
That's good.
felt really humbled, and I was just being poured humble juice, literally just like being poured on my head. And
Humble juice.
yeah, humble juice. And yeah,
That's funny.
yeah. It's like a cold plunge. You know, cold plunges don't feel good, but in a lot of ways, there's a lot of health benefits from it. Being put into uncomfortable situations are not always good feeling, but there's a lot of internal benefits from those things too, right? So, anyways, loss and sadness in that way, probably over a relationship or something like that. No, actually, I've had moments where, even in marriage, I mean, I can't I know that there are some, I just can't remember any specific one. But I do remember this one time. I think it was, was it before me and Elena got married? I think it was after me and Elena got married. We moved into this townhouse or row home in Baltimore before we bought our house in
Venice.
No, in
Glen
Glen
Burnie. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we moved over there. It was before that time, and we were just staying here for a little while, maybe less than a year. And it was a time where I was like in between jobs. I wasn't quite sure what path I was going to go in terms of just like money and profession.
Yeah.
And Elena was really like grinding me and being really critical about like, hey, what are you going to do? You're the man of the house type of thing, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm sure you know what that looks like.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so like it was a point in my life where I was like, okay, I need to provide for my family. And by entering into that step, taking that step into becoming a provider,
Yeah.
also meant that my foot had to be out of another place, you know? I felt like there was something that needed to be removed out of me in order for me to step into being in a role of a provider at the same time.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I felt a sense of loss when it came to my own self-identity.
Yeah.
You know, like, okay, well, I guess I just need to get a job, or I just need to do something else that didn't feel directed in my own self.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't say that it was necessarily a good thing, but it was the thing that needed to be initiated for me to step into a different place where I'm not about myself,
Yeah.
you know? And I think when it comes to sacrifice, it's not so much about like what you do, but it's about what you choose to let go of off of yourself. The persona, the identity that you feel of yourself, and letting that go and humbling yourself to where, okay, like sometimes like things just need to be done. I got to do what I got to do. And so, um, yeah, at that point, like, um, I think it was like at nighttime, in the evening time, I stepped out of the room and I went down into the living room and I just like sat to myself and I can't remember if there was a prayer, but I feel like in some ways there was a, mm, I wouldn't even say it's a promise, but I feel like I agreed with myself to where it's like, okay, like I'm gonna provide for my family. I'm going to do what needs to be done. Um,
So essentially, you're saying you embraced the role of a man.
one of the
One of the
traits
one of the
traits that
traits. Yeah.
that maybe I wasn't fulfilling the best of that I could.
Yeah.
So, but the thing is that these words they have like visual context to them because when you're talking about embracing, you're talking about like you're now an embrace is not like one arm, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? An embrace is like two arms. So it's kind of like there was like myself and husband and I was like side by side with both of them. It's like I had to let go of one so that I can fulfill everything that I needed over here. And within this, I'm renewed in my own identity
Hmm.
because this identity over here, the single man, was me who defined my own self. And me in a marriage context is who God identified me as within that realm,
Yeah.
you know? So that sacrifice of letting myself I guess denying myself in
Yeah.
that way had to be done or else I just wouldn't grow any further or grow into anything else, you know?
So, I, from the outer perspective, from what I am observing of my married friends and my older friends who are married and well established in their life, when I only thing I could do is observe and learn from a distance. So
Mm.
from my perspective, I can't fully understand, obviously, but there are some elements in which, like a physical eye from an outer perspective, sees and understands certain things, right? I can like somewhat expect what the marriage will be like, what it will be like to have kids and deal with everyday little things. It's not about the glorious moments that people capture like on a highlight moment of their life on Instagrams or social media, because people think of marriages like that, but it's not that. Marriage is so many little nuance, annoying, want to give up moments. That's what really marriage is, and then you have to like continuously overcome these tiniest obstacles to big obstacles every single moment, literally, you know. And it's not like even when your kids grow up and you send them off, you're still married, So you still gotta fulfill that duty of a husband to that wife of yours for the rest of your life, and it feels like a mountain that keeps on growing the more you climb, because oftentimes we picture a mountain because they want to get to the peak point, but this is like a mountain where you're climbing, but the mountain grows, the peak continues to grow. It's kind of something like that, I guess. Um, but anyway, can I ask you a question about that? Um, since since you know me and you have observed me probably the closest out of all my friends. So I want to ask you this question, and you can be honest with me.
Okay.
It won't hurt my feelings because I accept my flaws. I know what I need to work on, things like that. But I want to ask you, how do you think I will do as husband?
Simply put, I think you'll do fine. Do I think it'll be easy? No. Do I think that the characteristics and traits that you have, some of the ones that you think are good, are even needed? In the long run, probably not.
What are you,
There's, I mean,
what are you referring to?
like there's some qualities about yourself that you're very proud of, that you're proud of upholding and things like that.
Yeah.
And I don't think that all of them are necessarily good or right.
Yeah.
And like for instance, I might say something like, you may say like I have a wide perspective and I can understand and grasp a lot of concepts, until you can't understand a woman who's right in front of you, you know? Until you face that thing that just you hear, like you meet your equal, right? Like I think you said it too, like in martial arts. You realize that you're not as open-minded or patient as you think you are, you know? And that's a good thing. The reason why I say that's a good thing is because that is where your growth starts. The challenges that you face in a relationship or marriage is something to be praised about, because that's when you realized, okay, it's kind of okay. It's like this: when you're training in martial arts, and like you had a really long practice, and the coach is like, "All right, 5-minute break. All right, let's reset. All right, we got about an hour and 30 minutes left." You know, a lot of people will fall off at that time, but you have to understand the people who stick around for that training are the people who are chosen for that team, you know, for those moments, who go into the next level. So there's going to be moments, I think, in relationships and marriage where things get really difficult and challenging, and just a lot of internal struggles with, like, let's just say patience, open-mindedness, just having, I wouldn't say a wide perspective, but the right perspective, the right amount of grace that you need,
Well,
the right amount of sensitivity.
granted, I've never really been in a real relationship. I know that's like really embarrassing thing to say.
No, it's not.
And it's by choice, you know, but I'm older now, so it's like, in a society's perspective, oh my God, he never had a girlfriend, like that's embarrassing, you know. But this is one category of perspective that I haven't experienced a whole lot.
That's okay.
And that's why I agree with you. Like, I mean, I may say that I have a wide variety of perspective in many things in life, which I think I do decently, right?
Yeah.
But in a context of relationship, I don't. And I can comfortably admit that I don't have,
Yeah.
like, the depth of
Yeah,
the
and I mean,
understanding
I
in
always
that.
thought that I was very like patient and tolerant, and maybe you see me that way.
Yeah.
Maybe I have a little bit more than most, but in a family context,
I've never seen you angry.
I'm not very tolerant, to be honest.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm somewhat patient. I'm not very tolerant.
The only time I've seen you shout someone is when you,
Like at my dad, right?
yeah, when you screamed back at your dad defending me that one time. And I
So,
was,
so let me tell you this, right? I believed that I was patient and tolerant, and people would always tell me, "Oh, you're so patient," or "How are you so whatever, whatever," right? And to some extent, I was like, "Yeah, I guess I am." You know, I think I am. Other people think I am, and I guess I am. Until I realized that when things are not in my own control, when things are not ideal, and I have to practice patience and tolerance,
Yeah.
and I realize how much I haven't matured in those areas. Once I recognized that, it allowed me to mature in those spaces, you know? And you're going to be tested, and it's a good thing. When you feel out of character, when you hold on, let me not say character. When you start to feel those things stir up, where it's like, I have a wide perspective of these things, the things that you're proud of, right? But even a little situation where a guy was just cutting down a branch, you know, and it jolted you out of your seat. You know what I'm saying? Like even little moments like that, think of that as like if your child was doing that, you know, or your wife was over here doing something
Yeah.
with whatever. It's like I'm recording here. Can't you see what I'm doing? Look at all this. I'm here with my best friend doing all these things. Come on, guys. I came all the way from Maryland. What do you think? You know what I'm saying? Like like when you blow up like that, you realize how inferior you are in patience, tolerance, kindness, humility, humbleness. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like being conscious um, of how little self-discipline I have when things are just going not my way. I'm recognizing that more and more, which allows me to be more patient, more kind, all the things that I'm trying to be, you know, to practice being just a better steward of my own body and my own emotions. If you really think about it, these guys who are out here cutting down these trees, the whole reason why we came out here and stopped here
It's because it
is
was
because of
nicely,
them, you
yeah,
know?
nicely
They
taken
cut
care
this
of.
grass.
Right.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
know. Yeah.
Like they did this a few times a week, you know, to make this place
I'll go say
look
sorry
good.
later to him.
No. Hey, listen. You can do that, whatever. I'm not trying to make you. I'm not trying to obligate you to do anything. I'm just saying like, it's just a new epiphany that just kind of happened here, where it's like, we look at this beauty and this ideal location, and I'm not trying to pin this on you or
I
anything
know.
because
Yeah.
I see this from like
Yeah.
God's perspective of how God reveals like even a woman to you, right? Like let's say a woman or a wife is in front of you, but at the same time they just start like nagging you or something like that, you know? And you're like, and you just blow off on them. You just go off and just, and say like, why can't you appreciate me the way that I should be appreciated or something like that, right? Um, when God was the one that brought that person to you, right? So I'm just kind of spreading this out a little bit where, you know, this place was brought to your attention, and the people who steward this land, you know, they're just continuing on what they're doing.
I want to ask you another thing. Um,
What time is it?
140. We're doing okay with time, right? Not bad.
1:40?
Yeah.
We got about 20, 30 minutes.
Okay. That's fine. I really am grateful and, I appreciate this moment, just so you know. I remember like the first time you took me out to that Newport Beach area by the elementary school.
Yeah.
Remember? And we biked there like 3 a.m. in the morning.
Hmm.
And you remember like I got like super emotional. That was 2021.
I mean, I can't remember the years like you can. You remember the dates, times, years, months, what you were wearing probably,
Yeah. Well,
what you
and
ate the
then we
day
talked
before.
about, we were looking at that Pacific Ocean,
Yeah.
and we were talking about how I came from that opposite ocean, to U.S. 21 years ago at that time.
Hmm.
And I've had many different older brother figures in my life and mentor figures that has been monumental for who I am and like, you know, of my layers of characters that I have. Uh, but I never really, I never really get a chance to like sit down and actually like I never really get a chance to like sit down and like express to them like how, I don't know, how grateful I am. So maybe I don't like. The thing is like our relationship, like we understand each other without saying all these things. And but I think it's appropriate for a younger person to say it to the older person. So I'm very grateful you know, for who you are, and yeah, and like all the things that you've been there for me, you know. And, yeah, I just want to say that. I just want to say thanks.
Well, praise God that we can uh, be who we are and constantly coexist in different areas of our life and our hobbies and interests, you know?
Yeah. Have I taught you anything before?
Yeah, you have. I think that hold on, let me think a little bit more deeply about this. Um, it's not exactly you teaching me through what you said. It was more so like teaching me off of just who you are. And maybe this is something that was um, you're just naturally born with, or it's just something that your parents have, built you up to be. But I think that your eagerness to be compassionate, you know, to freely give and help and desire to find those spaces is is a trait that is a positive, good thing, you know. just wanting to, not just having a desire to help or to, give yourself and just sacrifice your time or your energy or your money or just these things, your resources or whatnot. But looking for those places, not just wanting to be in those places, but looking to be someone where you can fill in those gaps. I think that's such a dutiful quality that, like, can be overlooked sometimes, you know? And in a lot of ways, that quality just reminds me to be uh, purposeful, it also provokes me to be just thoughtful and caring and proactive. So just having that eagerness, I know sometimes you kind of downplay that eagerness because it kind of gets you in trouble and sometimes,
Yeah.
and just in situations that could have turned out better or whatever. But
Yeah.
I mean, I can't really speak for those scenarios, but just how you tie in your eagerness to help people and be there for people, I see that in such a positive trait in in a family situation, as a husband, uh, and yeah, when you put in that eagerness with that compassion and you put it together, it automatically develops a heart to serve and to sacrifice, a self-sacrifice. And I mean, that in itself is a really deep and profound language of love that you serve to people. And I think that, it can be overlooked and overseen, but I don't see that quality in a lot of people, you know? And when you don't see it very often, and then you run into it one day, or you run into it because of one person, it makes you recognize how shallow a lot of people are. And it makes you recognize how little care people have for for each other a lot of times, even in family situations. But yeah, it's something that, I desire to nurture in our own kids, just having the heart to serve in that way, where even though it's not necessarily a benefit to themselves, that they see immediately at least, that it's just a good thing to have when you're talking about a community or a relationship or nurturing, a circle of people. And I think that's probably one of the reasons why people come to you, because when people come, a lot of times it's because they want something, you know, and what you give them with that compassion and that eagerness to just automatically want to give something back, they get what they need from you. Yeah.
When I was a kid, I always, I don't know, it was a natural for me, you know? I've always liked making friends, and that was so easy for me, you know? I could literally go make friends with anybody, and I don't know, it's just like, try to go back in time to your childhood and that mindset, okay, for a second. You're on a playground and then you're just like carefree. You don't know about the world, right? You don't know who you are. You don't know about what that person, or all you know is just the pure innocence of what is to be, essentially. And you're just very like curious, like, I don't know, not in a sense like a peculiar kid that's going through taking out all the cabinets at home and drawers, like making a mess, like discovering, but not like that, but like kind of like the scene from Finding Nemo. Nemo is like the character that I was when I was a kid. You know, I very much was very naive and I don't know, I guess innocent, you know, and I didn't even know what rejection was or any of that, you know. I didn't know about any like calculated mind or I don't even know what manipulation is or was or
Yeah.
any of that, you know, like, and you just want to go make friends, you know, that kind of thing. I honestly, even now, as an adult, I have that, you know, and I think these are one of the kind of like a rare trait that I think God allowed me to like protect.
I don't think you protected very well, to be honest. It's the opposite of that. You got to get
Yeah,
that under control.
yeah, well,
Like just
what
that,
are we talking about? Yeah,
because like my 2-year-old, we taught him like to share, right?
yeah,
So we give him like some like fruit snacks or something like that, and we always encourage him to share. And when his siblings asks for things, he would just start giving away fruit snacks. I was like, "May I have one, please?" And he would just give me one.
yeah,
I would eat one, and then he would give me one before I even finished the first one.
yeah,
And then he would just give them all out until he has like
yeah,
one left,
yeah.
and then he would give that one away until he realized, oh, I don't have anything left, you know. Um, but
That's
yeah, like
it's a blessing and a curse. It's like the trait
it's
my
a
mom,
blessing. Let's
my
not call it
mom,
a curse. It's a blessing.
yeah,
It's just that we need to learn how to wield it properly, right?
yeah.
It's never a curse.
I think so. Now that I look back and see my progression of my life, of who I am, you know, from my my whimsical and innocent childhood that I lived in the mountains in Korea to very complicated and difficult time that I had here in US, you know, not knowing the language or culture or even going through the denominational transition from church. Uh, yeah, like I have high understanding of of people, and I think that's why I have so much compassion for people, and I think that's why I just you know want to make friends with everybody, and because I really think that I can connect with anyone, just about anyone, you know, and yeah, I mean, people want to be understood first of all, right? I don't think I've ever met a single person in this world that who never want to be understood, you know? We all want to be understood, but it's just like nobody can truly understand who we are, right? So this is one of those difficult challenges that we all face throughout life. No matter if we have many best friends or even the closest person in your life, so-called your spouse, they're not mind readers and they're not yourself. Sometimes you yourself don't even know who you are or what you want, right? So this is like one of those great mystery, I suppose, right? We all want to be understood, but yeah, sometimes we don't even know what we want, and there are times, of course, we do know, but
Yeah.
you know.
I
Anyway,
think
so
part of that comes with identity,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
I think that we want people to understand us, like you're saying, but how can they even understand us when we don't even understand ourselves? And when it comes to our identity, I know that people are looking to refine or figure out what their identity even is
yeah,
by searching this world, but I mean, the Bible already tells us who we are.
right. I have zero doubt or confusion of who I am. Like I told you in the beginning of our recording, you know, I'm competent, and I'm. If there's a word that's beyond confident, I truly believe that. You know, I know who I am. You know, and I'm You know, sometimes, you know, if I'm being honest with you, like there are days, you know, am I happy with the way I look physically? No, you know, but that's like little things that we all gotta face, right? But in terms of like my character, of who I am, right? I feel very competent with this. I wouldn't trade this with anybody. If there was a special technology or thing that somehow make us swap personalities or character, I wouldn't do it, you know? So in that sense, I'm giving praise back to God, saying that, Lord, I thank you for the way how you made me, you know, because I accept the way how you have created me. That's what I'm saying to God, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I am 100% grounded in this, and I have no chink of armor or of doubt when it comes to this. Um, so anyway, going back to the people thing, I think, you know, even just me doing this YouTube and like the desire that I have, that sitting down with different people and talking to them about life and deeper things, these are deep rooted characteristics or some kind of a desire that I inherently have, that I'm continuously wanting to exercise, you know, and by doing so, it's therapeutic for both ends and it's beneficial, you know, and I think this is like one of the core human what do you call it? Not belonging, but something that people want deeply inside is to have like genuine friendships and genuine relationships, you know, like that transparency, you know. So this is what I really try to strive by, you know, with all my friends, and you know, whenever I meet them and talk to them, spend my time
Yeah.
or give them gifts or money or whatever it might be, you know, because I know how fragile life is. I know the feeling of betrayal. I know the feeling of
Yeah.
shallow
Well,
people.
wait
I know
until
the
you get
feeling
into
of
marriage, when those things will be practiced in that realm. Um, I'm not trying to like dare you on this or anything like that, but I'm just saying like everything that you have felt and experienced in this world,
yeah,
as you are right now, it's likely that you will face them in the face of marriage.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know, and that
I
in
know that. I
itself is
know.
a
Yeah,
different. It's a different thing altogether.
yeah.
You know,
I agree.
but it's healthy
Yeah.
at the same time. You know.
Can you ask me one of the questions that was personal question that you wanted to ask me?
I mean, I don't think we have time for it.
Yeah.
Let me see. This is not going to be like a rapid fire type of thing,
Okay.
but let me just see what I got here.
Dang it, I have so many questions for you too that I haven't even like scratched the surface on. Yeah.
It's not about how much we can get done here.
I know. I know.
So, where is my document that I had? Looking for it.
We can do it next time.
Yeah, I don't have a appropriate question for you right now.
They're all deeper questions.
Yeah.
That's gonna trigger me into next
Yeah,
hour or more.
I think you're gonna just you would get frustrated
Really?
just because a lack of time. I think.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
That's fair enough.
Because I think it would, like you
Okay,
said, I think it
that's
would
fair.
trigger something inside of you to
Okay.
feel like
Now you got me all curious and thinking about it.
it's all good.
All right. Well,
Wrapping up.
yeah.
Okay.
Maybe let me see if I can maybe ask maybe like a really easy question. I've always kind of been curious. I wanted to ask you this, but I mean, I know that you do a lot of things, and I know you've done a lot of things in the past. You know, I think this is one area that we can kind of like we can relate to one another, because like, you know, we're not just one trick pony who've only done one or two things in life, but we dabbled and dipped our foot in areas of life, you know, art, music, sports, right, studies, and of different philosophy to this and that. But what's one dream that you let go of? Like something that you really wanted to do or wanted to become when you were a kid?
Let me see. I don't know. It's so weird because like a lot of things that I wanted to do before were
Yeah.
just like stuff at that time of that age.
Yeah.
I wanted to go to the Olympics for Taekwondo.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wanted to be uh, some type of artist or like illustrator, comic book illustrator, something like that.
Yeah.
I wanted to write music, or not write music, but like
Gosh, you did so many things.
be like a lyricist, or
Yeah.
do like choreography and stuff like. And I dabbled in some of these things.
What about professional pool playing? Like a little
I had
season?
an enthusiasm for it. Like
Yeah.
I was like, I would say like it was like a hobby, but
Yeah.
I never wanted to like be like a professional pool player.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't even want to be a professional like chess player,
Mm.
because like sometimes I know that sometimes when you turn a hobby into a profession,
Yeah.
you start to
It's a different.
know things that
Yeah.
doesn't make the game fun anymore.
Yeah.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So
It's so true, and
yeah,
that it's almost like a little child perspective
Mhm.
on something like no school, whoopie-doo,
Yeah.
that's always good, but
yeah. So
it's
to me,
different.
it's not really about like what I wanted to do
Yeah.
that I let go of. I think more. I think a more applicable question for myself right now is more like, what is it that I'm intended to do after I stepped out of that life? You know, God, what is it that I'm here for?
Yeah.
What's the next thing?
Well, then
What
the
about
next
this
question
season?
I actually had here was,
Mhm.
what do you think God expects out of you right now?
Obedience. Obedience and just having an ear to hear. If I can't hear him, I can't obey him.
Yeah,
So
it's good.
training my ear, just like the whole thing that we had a conversation about a little bit ago when I was talking to you about AI.
Yeah.
You know, I told you about AI 3 years ago, and I
Yeah.
brought it to your attention now, when maybe your ears are a little bit more open to things.
I feel like it's cheating
So
though. Yeah, but yeah. Anyway, go ahead.
yeah, but
Yeah.
it's like little things like that God would kind of nudge us on, but we don't really even have the sensory like to be mature enough to understand what it is that even that little nudge was,
Hmm.
you know.
Yeah.
So just trying to mature in those areas where, uh, I thought I was perceptive. I thought I was conscious in these things, but sometimes when it comes to God, you're just like, He already said it 5 years ago, and now it's like you come around and realize, oh yeah, so that's what it meant, you know. So
What your answer, what you answered just now, obedience. I feel like that can also be the answer from 10, 20 years from now too, you know? And so one final question that I want to
well, let
ask.
me tell you about this.
Yeah.
Obedience is only obedience when you answer the calling when it's called. If you wait before you do it, that's
Uh,
disobedience.
yeah.
I think, I don't know, it's probably some parent said this or something, but like, delayed obedience is disobedience.
Oh.
And I think about it because it's like, if I ask a child to grab me something real quick that
Yeah.
I need like right at that moment, but they decide to wait 20 minutes, or they just completely forget altogether, then it's disobedient. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not what I need later, it's what I needed right now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I can't add anything to that. Um, what do you think your younger self would think of yourself now?
Is that the question?
Well, let me ask that for the sake of the continuity
Okay.
here. And it's like we know this because we know we can just cut these out. But all right, let me get back into that little serious moment. Like, uh, yeah, glasses off is, I think, better.
Glasses off?
Yeah, yeah, just keep it off.
Okay.
What do you think your younger self would think of yourself now?
How young?
20 or mid 20s.
Mid 20s?
So basically, right before I met you.
I would say disbelief.
Oh,
I'll say disbelief.
yeah. Did you ever dreamed about like? Could you
Never dreamt of
dream?
having 8 kids. Never dreamt of. I never dreamt of a lot of things, you know? I never really like had a I don't know, like
Like a
had
vision or
had
like
a vision to where
yeah.
it's like, okay, this is what I want in my life. This is how I want my life to be panned out. This is
Yeah.
how many rooms I want in a house, you know?
Yeah.
I want to make this much money. I didn't have those far-sighted objectives to fulfill.
Huh.
So where it's like imprinted in my mind where I'm like chasing that thing.
Yeah.
I would say I've always been pretty like open to it. Like it was more so like in a state of wonder
Yeah.
rather than like a state of like coveting this dream. So
Wow.
if God were to reveal what my life is today,
Yeah. Back then.
I would have, and it was just in like a glass
Yeah.
crystal ball or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
I would have been like, oh, that's not my that's not my dream.
That's not me.
That's not my life.
Wrong person.
Yeah. You gotta turn the channel a little bit, adjust it.
I see.
Yeah.
Isn't it incredible? Like even my life too, where I was to where I am now. There's something about it, isn't it? There's something like different about seeing our past. I don't know, because at least I have a lot of, I have a lot of like recordings of my journals and things like that that I can reflect and see who I used to be, And I think this is important to do that, and I continue to do it because this is one of my own self journey that I do with myself, so that I could, because there are a lot of areas in life where you don't have people next to you, They say that your majority of your life, you're living inside your headspace, essentially, in many ways. I'm talking about in a human perspective here, right? And so, yeah, sure, we get together like this and we talk about a lot of deep things, but we're still in our minds, and like we can't get away from our own thoughts and minds, So, in order to like keep yourself grounded, and also to like check yourself, I document myself, and I record myself, like my progression.
I remember that
Yeah.
maybe a couple months ago, you had said that you listened to some of your recordings,
Yeah.
and that were like years ago, and
Yeah.
you realized that, oh, I still agree with a lot of those things.
Yeah, actually, yeah,
know?
yeah.
And I wonder, and I'm not judging
Yeah.
you one way or the other, but I wonder if
I haven't matured.
yeah, well, let me put it this way. I wonder if there are some concepts that you believe that the way that the world is, or how the world works, or the way the mind works, or even the spirit. I wonder if any of those ideas that you believe wholeheartedly are true
Yeah.
are areas that needs to be refined, that prevents you from getting to another phase in your life or something like that. So
Well,
maybe like you're stuck in a season because of a belief system that you have that hasn't changed for
well,
10 years,
I'm always open to correction, and I'm
Yeah.
open to new ideas
Yeah.
and perspectives that I think that I have, but I don't. You know, I'm very much open to those corrections.
Mhm.
But I think we talked about it. But some of these ideas are not like just light things, though. They're
Yeah.
they tie often with like spiritual things and biblical things, and so.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, what I'm trying to say is I think it's like, you know, I think it's important to like leave traces for your future self
Yeah.
to see how far you've come. Every now and then it's good to look back at the trail that you just walked, you know,
Yeah.
and just like appreciate the milestone. That's
Yeah.
what I'm trying to say. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
I
I
know,
think that there is a divine purpose as to why you record so many moments and
yeah,
you acknowledge so many like timelines
yeah,
and not timelines. What is it like? Moments in time.
yeah,
Why those dates are so important to you.
yeah,
I can't imagine how many dates you're gonna remember once you get married. You're gonna remember the first time she farted. You're gonna remember the first time like you kissed her. First time.
I'll probably remember
You're gonna
that.
have a whole like
Not the fart part, but
spreadsheet.
yeah.
Hey, maybe you will.
We'll see. Anyway, all right. We should get going.
Yeah.
That was fun, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hot though.
Yeah. Thanks.
Wonder
All
how
right. You
things would
can
be if it was
stop
just
your
all in the shade
audio
though.
first.
Huh?
You can stop your audio.
Oh.